breath. So the Ujayi breath in yoga, it helps us to create a little bit of a sound to the breath, which is what our mind focuses in on. So that's why it is really helpful with a mindfulness practice. And the Ujayi breath helps us to lengthen and slow the breath right down, because it makes the diaphragm work harder to pull the breath down into our lungs. It makes this muscle work harder, and it also allows us to sort of direct the breath downwards and outwards and towards the back of our lungs before it kind of pulls upwards and fills the lungs up towards the clavicles. So although most of us are up here breathing, what we want to be doing is pulling the breath down and then out and then up, yeah? So this Ujayi breath, it creates a little constriction on the back of the throat, which sounds a negative thing, but actually I find that actually I breathe like this often because it's become such a habit, and whenever I feel slightly anxious or if I wake up in the night time to tell myself to get back to sleep, I will go straight into the Ujayi breath because it just kind of just calms everything down, and it makes me feel controlled and centered. And I guess it is, it's controlling the life force. So what I like to do to teach this is to get people to sit up nice and tall. So it's really, really important that you do have good posture. When I see my son in particular sitting like this at dinner, I'm like, it just breaks my heart, because I can see he can't breathe and he needs the breath, he needs the oxygen for his brain. So getting yourself into a nice lengthened posture to start off with is really important. And if it means sitting against a wall so that you can get that support of the wall, then do that. And then I like to imagine you've got your chin drawn back, so you're giving yourself a bit of a double chin. And if you imagine either a mother cat is pictured up by the scruff of the neck, if you're a kitten, so you get what's called like a kitten neck, or imagine you have a string attaching to this ridge at the back of your head, and that string is kind of pulling you up towards the ceiling. And then you allow yourself to sort of drop off this imaginary string like a puppet. I should say, by the way, that I'm getting the studio insulated properly, and because of Brexit, the panelling is stuck in wherever it's stuck, Norway, and so I've just got the silver stuff in the background, so that's why I've got this background at the moment. Anyway, back to lifting up through the ridge of the head. So this allows us to create this little kind of drawing in, and this is this Jalandhara Bandha. Yeah, so Jalandhara Bandha is creating a slight internal lock for our breath. And then we want to make sure the breath comes through the back of our nostrils. So we're not sniffing, we're not bringing the breath in through the tip of our nostrils, we're bringing it through the back of our nostrils. And it's really important you have a nice loose jaw, because when it kind of constricts our breathing. So just make sure your jaw feels loose. And I'll give you another little cue for that in a second. So chin's drawing in, ridge of the head is lifted, we're nice and tall through the spine. Make sure you're not tucked under with your pelvis. If you're sitting on a chair which pulls your tailbone underneath you, you're also going to find this constriction here. And no matter how much you lengthen the top bit, the bottom bit is still going to be constricted. And for us ladies in particular, and men, it's really important that the diaphragm, the lung diaphragm, sits properly on top of our pelvic diaphragm to get good vascular flow through the whole of the pelvic area, and especially to get that synergy with the pelvic floor as you breathe. So make sure that you've got a nice long waist, your lung diaphragm is sitting on top of your pelvic floor, your pelvic diaphragm. And then with a nice loose jaw, we want to pull the breath from the back of the nostrils right down to the bottom of our lungs and then spread it out. So imagine you've got gills like a fish. So imagine actually that you're just kind of pulling the breath into this area here underneath your armpits. And then as you exhale, we allow the breath to pour out of us by kind of feeling like we're closing those ribs ever so slightly, like sort of drawing back inwards. So the sound, when we're breathing in through here, we've got this little constriction. The sound is a little bit like a soft Darth Vader. Or if you imagine an ocean, and just as a nice soft ocean, kind of rushing up on a pebble beach and then rushing back again. It's that rhythmic, soft, slight, it's not snoring, but there's a little bit of a rasping to the sound, to the breath that you can hear. Okay, so I like to visualize also, it's like a vase. You imagine that you've got a lovely big vase like this, and if you're pouring water into the vase, that's how the breath fills the lungs. So it goes kind of down and then out and then up. And then if you imagine as you're breathing out, you're just kind of tipping the vase and the water's flowing out of the vase. That's the same as we exhale, we've got a slight drawing back in again of the ribs and the breath is pouring out of us. So this is Uddiyana Bandha. This breathing as we slightly draw the base of the rib cage in, Uddiyana Bandha. When we do full Uddiyana Bandha, that is that breath technique when we do a suction of the organs right up underneath our rib cage. But for just subtle, normal breathing, normal Ujayi Uddiyana Bandha, it's that slight drawing in at the base of the rib cage. Okay, so I'm going to talk about pelvic floor sort of connection in a minute, but first of all, we'll just practice this Ujayi breath. So nice loose jaw, good posture, and you want to start to slow and stretch your breath. So as you pull the breath in, slow it, and then as you press the breath out, hopefully you can hear a little bit from my nostrils there. You're breathing in and out of your nostrils. For some of us, breathing out of our nostrils feels really weird. If that's the case, breathe in through the nostrils and then just breathe out through your mouth. Nice relaxed jaw though. So breathing in and then breathing out. So I describe it like an accordion. You know when you put, well, not that many of us would have pulled an accordion, but when you're imagining an accordion being opened and then pressed closed again, there's a bit of push there, isn't there? There's a little bit of constriction, and that's the sort of feeling that we have with this little constriction on the back of the goiter here. To breathe in with a bit of a pull as the diaphragm pulls the breath into your lungs and then pushes the breath out. Good, so we're slowing the breath down. And in yoga, one very common technique is to do the 1-2 breath. So that means if we're breathing in for say 3 beats, we try breathing out for 6 beats. Yeah, and then slowly you'll find the lung capacity expands and you can breathe in for 4 beats, and then you slow the exhale down to 8 beats. So maybe if you start with kind of 2 beats in and see if you can slow the breath down to 4, and then increase to 3 and to 6, and just see how you go with that. So hopefully you're breathing, and you're breathing with this Ujayi breath. So keep going with the breathing. I'm going to get you to grab your strap now. So all the installation is creating these little white bits, which are over absolutely everything. So grab your strap, and what we do, or your scarf, what we do is we place it around this area at the base of the rib cage. So where your floating ribs are here, that's kind of where you want to have the belt, not on your boobs, not around your waist, around your tummy, just sort of here, midway. And you hold the belt with one hand, so it's quite tight, so you can feel it. Because what I want you to do is get the proprioception perception of breathing into the back of your lungs. Nice loose shoulders. As you breathe in, we want to be pressing against the side here, so we can feel it into the strap. And then as you exhale, I want to create a little bit of a gap here. So breathing in as long as we can, and breathing out. Slowing that right down. It's a little bit of a gap. Now visualize the breath going into the lower part of the back of your lungs. So as you press the breath into the belt, focusing on the back, slowing that exhale right down. So keep going with that, and just in your mind's eye, take it from the sides to the back. It's going to go from up here anyway, so don't worry about that. But just focus it on the sides and on the back, so we can start to increase the lung capacity there. And then every time you exhale, and we're extending the exhalation now, see if you can imagine you've got little screws on your jaw, and every time you exhale, the screws are being unwound one more wind, and one more turn. So see if you can become quite gormless with your jaw. Yeah, so still slight softness, slightly closed lips, but really soft. And just keep unwinding tension from the jaw. We know the jaw and the pelvic floor are very deeply correlated, fascially connected. So the more we can relax the jaw, the more we can have a nice relaxed and responsive pelvic floor to our diaphragm. So hopefully that makes sense. So I find that this is just a nice way to get people who are used to chest breathing to start to use the diaphragm more and start to use these intercostal muscles. So these work with the diaphragm to pull the lungs kind of open and then squeeze the breath out of you, push the breath out of you. So how's that going? Can anyone give me a thumbs up or just let me know if that makes sense with that style of breathing? And Monica, Vicky? Hi, Vicky. Okay, so we've got the 1-2 breath. I wanted to show you the buzzy bee breath. So basically the inhalation through the back of the nostrils is exactly the same, but as we exhale, we create a buzzy bee sound. So this is called the Brahmacharya breath. And I honestly, 3 of these takes you straight into that parasympathetic nervous system. No matter how stressed you are, if you do a long exhalation, creating this low vibrational sound, very quickly, it will make you feel really grounded. It kind of makes you feel like you've had a glass of wine, actually. It just goes, which is why people say it's so powerful to use this kind of breathing before you go to bed. Don't have a glass of wine necessarily, at least not every night. Try breathing instead. So sitting up nice and tall, we won't do the full thing is to block off your ears and take your fingers over your eyes, because it creates a real sort of like a beehive, a buzzy bee sound through here, and you visualize it pouring down through your body. But we're just going to do it with our eyes open, so I can see you. Well, no, I can't see you, but yeah, so I can just communicate this, and it's just easier to do this without closing your eyes. But do imagine, as you create the sound, that it is pouring down like a water fountain, like a fountain, or you can imagine a chocolate fountain. It's just pouring down, releasing the jaw, releasing the shoulders, and then flowing down the body and connecting you down into the ground. So it's very grounding. We breathe in, and the breath comes up through the spine, just like this center of a fountain. We create the exhale. It's a yeah, it's like that. So let's do some of those together. Hopefully you can. If not, don't worry, just listen to me doing it and maybe practice later. But I reckon 3 of these is all you need to change states. So we breathe in, loose jaw, So if you did join me for that, you will be feeling like I do now, which is just really chilled. So this is a good one if you have kids who during lockdown are struggling with needing to move, getting a bit hyper. Just taking them through 3 of these grounding Brahmacharya breaths it's just incredible. I find it absolutely extraordinary. And of course, because we're creating this low vibrational sound, we are extending that exhalation. It's a lot easier to extend the exhalation. When we extend an exhalation like this, what we're actually doing is we're stimulating the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is our superhighway into that rest and digest, that parasympathetic nervous system. So it's a great tool if you are working with birthing women to help them to use that long exhalation. Yes, and I bet you use this with your birthing mamas Yeah, the buzzy bee breath is very, very powerful. So just 3 of those has made me just go, wow. I mean, I kind of feel like I've had a glass of wine. That's what I feel like. And you just, but still very clear. That's the nice thing. Just chilled, but clear. So I'm going to just show you a thing that I do with my hands as well. So sometimes people, when they first start breathing and first start doing meditation practices, kind of feel like they need to do something with their bodies. So I find this is quite helpful. Yes, Georgina, extending the exhalation with the buzzy bee breath, absolutely. And I was working with a client recently who really struggled to extend her exhalation. She had very tight, constricted diaphragm. And once we started working with the Brahmaharya breath, very quickly she found a lung capacity she didn't have before, and she was able to then, in normal breathing, extend the exhalation. So it can quite quickly help you enhance that full-bodied exhalation. Honestly, the exhalation is like, it's the key to everything. So, it's the key to pelvic floor health, to protecting your pelvic floor so that we don't have too much intra-abdominal pressure going down on the pelvic floor. It's the key to calming the central nervous system, to getting extra oxygen flowing as we detoxify the carbon dioxide. It's very, very powerful stuff. So if you imagine your hands are like lotus flowers, and you just sit like this with your elbows in, and then as you inhale, and we're going to do the 1-2 breathing for the moment, so I'll count up for 3 in and 6 out. So we breathe in, and as you breathe in, you open your fingers like a lotus flower opening up, and then as you exhale, you just draw your fingers back really slowly like the lotus flower closing. So try that. So let's combine the two. Let's try breathing in for say 3 or 4, and then breathing out using that Brahmaharya breath, the buzzy bee breath. Okay, so imagine you've got your belt around so that you can feel the breath going to the back of your lungs. Good. So just noticing how you're feeling. It's such a wonderful tool to have, just to calm everything down. And as I said before, as midlife women, it's essential that we stop revving the adrenals, that we just allow ourselves to have these times of rest, of inward contemplation during the day, because it really does just calm everything down, and it allows our body to start to function as it is designed to, and for the adrenals to start to take over the hormone production as our ovaries stop producing the hormones that our body needs. So any questions on that so far? Please just pop them in. I wanted lastly to show you the Nadi Shodhana breath. So this is another breathing technique which can be really helpful if you're feeling a bit in overwhelm. We know that the right hemisphere of the brain, that's our sort of creative dream-like state, whereas the left side of the brain is our more analytical, busy side. And it's very easy to get stuck in this busy side, especially when we're homeschooling and trying to do work and clean and get food for everybody all the damn time. It feels like they need food, doesn't it? And so when we're doing this, we can get stuck in that really sort of busy brain. And the Nadi Shodhana breath, which is the alternate nostril breathing, just helps to balance the 2 hemispheres of the brain. And what I like to do is spend a bit of time balancing the 2 hemispheres, and then block off the right nostril and just let the left nostril clarify so that we can really stimulate that right hemisphere of the brain. So this is really good if you wake up in the middle of the night and you can't do the buzzy bee breath because your partner's beside you, but you want to just calm this side down and get the right hemisphere sort of a bit more activated, then just doing the one side can be really helpful. So basically, I like to imagine that there's a wishing bone, yeah? So from the third eye point between your eyebrows here, and the wishing bone is down like that. And you don't need to do this, but I tend to put my peace fingers on that third eye point, just as a little bit of pressure, so that my breath kind of knows where to go. And so it's going up side one side, down the other side, up one side, down the other side, like that. It's like the two sides of a triangle, up and down, up and down, up and down. So we use our thumb and our ring finger to alternatively block off one nostril and then the other nostril. So if you try that, if you find that this method doesn't work for you, then just do that instead. I find that I need to kind of support my elbow after a little while, so there's no harm in that. Just make sure you don't end up slumping over. So you sit down nice and tall, eyebrows pressing here. Let's go back into our Ujayi breathing, so remembering that pretend scarf or belt now around here, so we're pressing into these intercostal muscles, into the bottom and the back of our lungs, slowing the breath right down. And then I'm going to get you to block off the left nostril first of all, breathe in through the right side, and then block off the right side and breathe out through the left side. And then breathe in through the left side, block it off and breathe out through the right side. And breathe in through the right, block it off, and out through the left. So keep going. You might find that you can start to slow your exhale right down. And I invite you just to pause at the end of the exhalation for a beat before you take the next breath in. So just focus on that little pause, that little bit of space where nothing is happening. Nothing's happening. There's no inhale, there's no exhale, there's just space. And then watch your body as it wants to bring in the next breath. Yeah, so obviously you don't need to be doing this with your hand. I'm just doing it to direct the breath. So I would typically do about 6 to 8 rounds of this breathing. So one round is a full up and down, and then up, and then down. So that's one round. I would normally do 6 to 8 rounds of this, which actually isn't that many. And then next time you breathe out of your left nostril, keep the right nostril blocked off and just continue to breathe in and out of that left nostril. And it can help to, as you exhale, just to imagine smoke or toxins are leaving your body. And then as you inhale that, a beautiful white light is coming up through that left nostril and into the right side of your brain. So it feels like you're releasing, you're detoxifying on the exhale, and on the inhale you are clarifying. So this is stimulating the right side of the brain, really calming everything down. And just take the hands away and breathe through both nostrils now, and just noticing how you're feeling. So to do a pranayama practice of one sort or another before you meditate or before you do a guided meditation, I think can be really, really helpful, because it's quite difficult to go straight from your busy life and think that you can just sit down and meditate. And that's why yoga practice is so powerful, because we can slowly unwind the tension from the body. We are breathing in a meditative way through the asana, through the postures, and then by the end of the practice, we're ready to consolidate and just to take ourselves into that state of integrating our practice and becoming, very still. And that's when we get to tap into that inner wisdom, that we can really listen to that inner pilot light, I call it. So yes, if you're finding that meditation isn't that easy, you're not alone. I find that thing, that pretending that you've got your lotus flowers opening and shutting, can be very helpful just to get the breathing going, and then that can lead you into being able to just to sit. I also think guided meditation is fantastic, really. So don't beat yourself up if sitting in complete stillness as yet is challenging. It is for a lot of people, and guided meditation is a fantastic tool, and pranayama is very much a vehicle to get you into a state of being able to really experience the benefits of meditation. So ladies, is there any questions that you have, or anything you'd like me to go over with the just the types of breathing? I'll give you a moment. No? Okay, the last thing I just wanted to remind you of, ladies, is the connection with the pelvic floor and the diaphragm, and how when we are doing pelvic floor exercises, it's really worth doing the drawing in and the lift, the tone, on an exhale. Because if you think about it anatomically, our diaphragm here is pushing upwards, it's releasing upwards, and it's pressing the breath out of us. And at the same time, because the top and the bottom, the diaphragm here and the diaphragm here, are basically like the top and the bottom of a big canister, which is this whole area from the pelvic floor up to the bottom of our lungs. Because it's the bottom and the top, they work together in synergy. So we naturally get, if we're sitting well, if we have got good breath control, we naturally get this little bit of movement through the pelvic floor as we breathe. So on an exhale, we naturally get a little bit of lift and tone. And then as we inhale, the pelvic floor receives the breath, and we get a little bit of lengthening through those pelvic floor muscles. So if you're then doing a Kegel, or if you're moving on to hyperpressive breathing and really lifting those organs, we want to be able to do that on an exhale. So it's like if you can imagine two jellyfishes sitting on top of each other in the ocean. We exhale, we inhale, we release completely through the pelvic floor. We exhale, we draw in and up through the pelvic floor muscles, and we inhale and release. So I'll leave actual pelvic floor work to another session. This is all about breathing, but just so that you understand that relationship between the pelvic floor and the diaphragm, and why posture is so important, breathing is so important, good mobility through the pelvis is so important for good pelvic floor control over the long term. Alrighty, I think I'm going to wrap it up there. I'll just leave it open if there's any particular questions. Otherwise, ladies, do practice the bumblebee breathing, the Brahmaharya breath, which is the long vibrational sound to the breath. Remember the nice loose jaw. Just 3 is just going to get you there. More than 3, you're going to feel the benefits. Slowing your breath right down with the 1-2 combination. So that means doubling the length of the exhale to the inhale, using maybe the lotus hands to help you with that, making sure you breathe here and into the back of the lungs here. And then we practice the Nadi Shodhana breathing, the alternate nostril breathing. So that is getting both hemispheres of the brain to kind of link together. And then if you need to really calm the brain down, just using the left nostril to stimulate that right brain activity and calm the left brain right down. Oh, thank you, and thank you so much for joining. Really, it's nice to connect because I'm not teaching in person. I'm about to start the coach training this month. So really nice to connect. And guys, I do have the free bathroom boot camp. So please download that, get the cue sheet, because you'll find that if you have it there, I now take you through pelvic floor exercises, it'll remind you to do the breathing. So if you sort of slot into little bits of your day, some conscious breathing and some conscious pelvic floor work and some conscious strengthening and conscious releasing through these pectoral muscles, you're going to find that those incremental bits of exercise and breath work really make quite a difference over February. Over February, I have decided to do Calm February. So C is for cleaner eating, less chocolate, basically, and conscious eating. So C is sort of for conscious eating as well. A is for activity, but it doesn't need to be a whole hour of yoga or a big long run. It can just be these little incremental bits of activity. There's lots of science behind NEAT movement, so that's non-exercise activity thermogenesis, to help us to rev our metabolism. So L is for learning or listening, and just, as we come into this, nearly into spring, they're kind of turning the corner towards spring, there's that slight awakening of the brain. I'm doing lots of learning with the coach training, but whatever it might be, just picking up a different type of book, maybe playing around on the piano, whatever it is, be open to just something maybe a bit different type of documentary you might watch, whatever. And then M is that mindfulness or the meditation practice, which is what I'm really hoping that this session will feed into. So join me for Calm during February, get your bathroom boot camp in, and I hope that you have a lovely week ahead. And thank you so much for joining me. Bye, ladies.